So that this concept of the law of compensation is not separated from the spiritual principles of Maat, because that's what it is. And so the ancient Egypt and the Nile Valley civilization has the oldest monuments. They have the oldest written texts. They have the oldest cemetery. They have the oldest artifacts in existence. Logic and evidence conclude that it must be the oldest of all civilizations, which means that the Bible is a complete fiction if it be understood as it is. If you now, where we are in America, I'm going to preface that and say where we are now as African people are in what is called the New World. The New World. So you can argue your faith, but you cannot never deny the real fact. We must divest ourselves from all man-made religions. And the reason that I say that is because nobody can deny the fact that all humans who make it to this plane of existence were given their spirituality intact. And to say that another way, nobody is born a Jew. Nobody is born a Muslim. Nobody is born a Christian. But you are born with your spirituality intact.
They make you be born again, though, see?
Well, that's part of, this is part of the refinement, brothers, what I'm telling you. This is part of the refinement. And so, from, I was talking to a sister this past week, and I had to explain to her, we were talking about this piece of the cross. And, you know, the conversation goes from here to there. I'll tell you, sister, at the end of the day, I'm prepared if you are able to show, I'm open to whatever you have to say, that if you can show me anything to convince me that there was ever a person named Abraham who walked the planet Earth. Okay? So, but what I was trying to impress upon our mind, we have to establish as African people that this spirituality that we have intact, the only person that we have to consult, if you will, is the Creator. Because the Creator gave us a system of understanding His spirituality through our pineal gland. It has never changed. Now, so that is how I want to segue in on this law of compensation. Now, again, we say the law of compensation was the law of all laws. And the reason we say that because everybody understands that it is the same as the spiritual principles of Maat. It has never changed. And to be sure, what our ancient African ancestors consciously established on as a fundamental element in the fabric of human society. Now, I had already read John Jackson's book, Man, God, and Civilization. How many of you heard of that book? I hope everybody will raise their hand because it's been introduced here in the house of Sankofa before. Man, God, and Civilization. That's a good basic documentation of what I'm telling you about right now. And John Jackson's book, Man, God, and Civilization, he gives a better understanding of the law of compensation being the building block of all society, which reveals that it is unthinkable that a society would be constructed of Maat, of the laws of compensation, one can be guaranteed. I'm going to underline that word guaranteed, of getting whatever he or she needs in that particular society. Now the reason that is so important, because I was reading an article, Ice Age Hang-Ups. It's the title of that article. It came out of, I want to say, what is that magazine? National Geographic. Ice Age Hang-Ups. Well, they were documenting the fact that in the Ice Age, if there was a difference between the male and the female on any aspect of life, the dominant part of that species will overrule the less dominant. Now this is where where you have I'm saying this because we have to be able to understand what is meant when we talk about the difference between males and females in this plane of existence. If it was a slight disagreement on the female's part with the male, it almost always meant death for the female. Now y'all know why I say that?
That's might equals right, right?
That is might equals right.
But that's in the context of these cave people, right?
That's right on.
That's not in the context of...
No. See, that's because we're going there. That, and if she's put out of that cave, she was a 99.9% death sentence. You understand? Now, you go across the Mediterranean, and let's just say for hypothetical, you get the same disagreement. If it happened, then that sister was laughing at that brother. Y'all know why?
Because she's equal.
Because she's walking, she's stumbling over food everywhere. She's stumbling over food everywhere. And she's she's there receiving the beauty of the sun and all the elements that earth gets. Y'all know that in the early days of Kemet, it was also known as a picture of heaven. If there is a heaven, then heaven must look like this, because there's no suffering here. You get my point? And so now, when Jackson wrote this book, Man, God, and Civilization, he wanted to make it very clear that we established a society. See, it's profound, brothers and sisters, to consciously build a society. I say consciously build a society dedicated to uplifting the spiritual principles of Maat. Now that, if you think about that, and think about the gravity of what I'm saying, you'll understand what I'm saying. That they were consciously dedicated to that. Now, what did that mean? First, that there had to be an establishment of balance between man and God and what is called nature to produce harmony in that society. So the spiritual principles of the law of compensation can one be guaranteed to acquire the things that one needed to live a productive life. And in another book by John Jackson called The Pagan Origins of the Christ Myth, how many of you heard of that one? Come on, raise your hand high now. See, that book also was society, and see, this is why I say this law of compensation does not escape our thoughts, deeds, and action. And in other words, even if we live in a white supremacist context, it's giving us a foundation. Anytime they give us a thesis, we can always come back with an antithesis. Make a long story short. But for over 3,000 years, 3,000 years, brothers and sisters, there was no such thing as war or or trying to create war in that society. 3,000 years. Y'all hear me? On record. We have it on record. So it's not hyperbole that I'm saying. So this is a great demonstration of the application of the laws of compensation in human society. Now, I'm about to close out. Now, the brother pointed out on Mike, he was right. Now, this is where we have to understand the difference. This society was dedicated itself to building on the concept that not might equals right. That's why I gave you that example of in the Ice Age, in the last Ice Age of there. But this society was dedicated on right equals might. That's the only way you can be mighty. That if you embrace these spiritual principles of living a virtuous life. And so, if we were to extract one word from this, the African said to you then and now, you were given life. Therefore, you must give life. And we were not confused on the definition of life. And so, this society that dedicated itself to the law of compensation, it produced a society in which there was no word for jails. There was no word for jails, brothers and sisters. And in society in which the theme was that there was no such thing as widows. There was no such thing as orphans. And there was certainly no such thing as gays and lesbians. Now, that's not a judgment on the people who call themselves that. I hear all the arguments, believe me, I do. I get stuff in the mail every week from a seminary who tried to convince me that some people are now born by that and we have to embrace them in that sense. And then now we have a society in which the woman lived on a co-equal status with man. Brothers and sisters, that's how we got there on. What is that? A union of complementary what? Union of complementary opposites. That's to teach us that all of us have a role to play. And no role was greater than the other role. Right? Right. And what do we call this in our vernacular language? This is the key of life. Did y'all get that? So, therefore, you have it right there. And in society where there was no record, listen to this, there was no record of a man even striking a woman. There was no a society where we had supreme reverence for all of our master teachers. And the law of compensation where all spiritual principles was simply, now this may message is true for us today as it was then. All spiritual principles were to be simply lived in order for society to achieve its desire, peace, balance, and harmony. So brothers and sisters, I will close out on the law of compensation. I will close it out right here. And I hope everybody got what was trying to be conveyed today, and I now open the floor